You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Happy Pride, friends. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City SC. As always, it is Nate, joined by John Bisworm, getting ready for a big weekend of soccer and a big 4th of July week next week as well. John, this is about the time that we've usually seen Minneapolis City turn it on and salvage their season. And I'll tell you what, I hope we can do it again this year. Couple big games coming up against some beatable opponents.
That, and we got the cup coming back, the Minnesota Super Cup coming back. So Yes, there's a lot to be had out there, and can we go take it? We'll find out. The life of the Crows is full of ups and downs lately, but we have a lot to celebrate this weekend as we head into a big matchup with Rochester. The Crows were swept on the season by Bavarians. We'll cover that. A loss that got a lot of reaction out of the coach, and we'll cover that. Speaking of what's ahead, we'll be joined by Ryan Adams of Grey Ducks Soccer to talk about his organization and partnering with Minneapolis City this weekend at our Pride match. And after winning the regular season title, Coach Roy and the boys, the U21s, were stunned by 1826 Academy and eliminated from the national, or the whatever you want to call it, the conference playoffs and ultimately the national playoffs. But there's more soccer to be had for the futures, as the U19s clinched a playoff berth last night against St. Paul United.
Yeah, man, lots to cover. Don't tell the boss, but let's day pod.
Yeah, let's do it.
John, when we saw 3 games against the Bavarians on the schedule before the season, we were looking at, hey, this is great. This is a team we managed to beat last year. So we were pretty optimistic that we got 3 shots at them this season. But this season has not played out quite as planned. And we rolled into Milwaukee for the 3rd game in our series, not only having failed to have earned a point against the Bavarians so far this summer, but we failed to score 1 goal against them. And spoiler alert, it was going to be more of the same for us in Milwaukee last Friday night.
Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. Yes, it was, but from a roster perspective, I was on hand in person. I was running Game Day Twitter, and I have not received any hate mail or any notifications from the league, so I believe I did a good job.
Yes.
But the roster that went was Evan Siefkin, Max Kent, Jonah Garcia, Max Kent, Nick Kent. Looks like we have a little bit of an old roster here. Max Kent, Nick Kent, Curtis Wagner, and then your midfield was Joey Tawa and Ryan Keefe, with Morgan Olson and Bernard C.B. Rule, with Misael Harris, and then up top you had Joe Highfield. I'm trying to remember by memory here. Joe Highfield and Hakeem Morgan, and I do not remember all the subs on the list.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just copy and pasted a placeholder roster in there from last game, thinking that you would update that.
Clearly didn't look at it. So there we go. But anyways, to recap that, it was Siefkin. In front of him was the Kent brothers and a mixture of Curtis Wagner. And then your midfield 2 was Joey Tawa and Ryan Keefe, moving up from that center back spot, flanked by Misael Harris and Bernard C.B. Rule, with Morgan Olson, and then the up top pairing of Hakeem Morgan and Joe Highfield. So got that one right. So this matchup, Nate, has historically always been, in my opinion, a razor's edge, where the 3 points could have fallen to either team, and this goes back to our PLA days. But I think the biggest deficit for either team has only been 2 goals. So it's not like one team, runs roughshod over the other. And then the other one has to come back. It's been clearly like a battle of these two teams, with both of them having ample chances. And this season has been some of the same. However, when it comes to the scoreline, the Crows, I think, have kind of felt hard done by late winners by Bavarians in their first meetings this season. And I really had high hopes for this one, not only just being there in person, but it being different and maybe seeing the Crows have a little bit of extra bit of fire or motivation to take some revenge in mind when they face their familiar foes across the border.
Yeah, you're right, John. And I think that even as you take a look at how the two games so far had played out, like game one, we were really not getting a lot of possession. It was chaotic on the bench. You saw due to league issues, Coach Craig couldn't take the bench. All sorts of things lent itself to kind of a weird game one, and we were still able to compete and stay in it, only to give up that late goal. The second game against Bavarians, it was much more evenly matched. I would feel like we even had run a play for a majority of that game at home, but we still got beat late against a very similar goal. So you thought, okay, we're improving. If anything, we're going to come out and compete, and 0-0, 1-1. Easy to think that the game could end up that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's where I make the ever so popular John Bisworm claim that I hate to sound overcritical, but as you know, I like to tell it like it is, Nate. So this one was almost all one-way traffic for the Bavarians. They looked sharp on the ball. They looked extra sharp in the off-the-ball movement that we talked about that they're so good at. Defensively, they always seem to be right there on the same page as us, waiting to kind of suffocate the ball, turn it into an attack. It is not that our boys did not give effort or try alternative ideas. It was just one of those games where whatever we did to find another way, it just wasn't landing. And those are really difficult games to be in, where you're not necessarily going up against an opponent that overmatches you from a talent perspective, but they're just on and you are not. And it can be very discouraging. So the game, it kind of started off back and forth. The 11th minute, there was an errant Joey Tawa back pass that didn't land to the feet of either Kent brother, and it did land at the feet of an unmarked Bavarian. It was about 25 yards out and did not need more than one touch before smashing a belter into the upper corner of Evan Siefkin's net to take the early lead. And it was a really fantastic goal. One of those ones that I wish we had footage of, because it was very nice. So the game plan then,
the game then got footage of any of these games in Milwaukee, John.
Yep, I know. I did mention that on that, and they didn't have ball kids; they had ball cones. So that's a new thing for us. Haven't seen that, but they do have their version of the freeway ball. It's the Milwaukee River ball. So there were a couple that hopped over there, but they didn't have any sound effects like you have. Like a nice splash sound would be perfect. But
or like a homeless person screaming.
Yeah, exactly. So the game then, after that goal, got extremely physical, and it was physicality in one-way traffic. From a category perspective, there were about 6 straight fouls by the Bavarians that did not result in any cautions. And I know that Coach Oliver and Coach Flintham started to get a little bit more animated about why there wasn't cards being thrown. But each foul kind of marched the Crows closer and closer to a potential dangerous service into the box with each attempt. But it wasn't fruitful. There was nothing that really came out of it. And the home side really dealt pretty well with it. More of the same kind of continued, but it was from an on the ball perspective for the Bavarians as they kind of moved the point of attack from side to side, ultimately ending in their second goal in the 23rd minute off of a well-placed cross that found the head of an attacker to tug it home. And to end the half, the Crows had their first chance of substance, or first, I think, chances of substance, but each needed a bit more to beat the goalkeeper on the day for the Bavarians, and they just didn't have it. So we go into the break, in my opinion, down a deep 2-0 hole.
Yeah, tough to go into the break down 2-0 when you haven't really had much of a sniff of the ball in the first half. You're wondering, like, not only do we need to make changes to make sure possession is more, is better, it is more in our favor, but also, like, we got to be able to turn that into chances and convert those chances, which has been a problem all season. So, it's definitely a deep 2-0 hole, all things considered.
Yeah. And the second half was the start of choices for the coaching staff. Do you bring the heat? Do you turn it up from a pressure perspective? Do you change a tactical formation and hope that you don't leave the back end of your squad exposed? And the choice that was selected on the day was to get aggressive. And it was not a wrong decision, in my opinion. But without the offense firing and really making the Bavarians have to think about things from a defensive perspective, the Bavarians took advantage of it mostly. It did take a while for them to figure out how to deal with the concerned the concerned increase in pressure level by the Crows. And in the 72nd minute, Hakeem Morgan had a wonderful chance, probably the best chance of the day, to bring this game back, to close to level, but at least change momentum a little bit. I believe the cross came in from Morgan Olsen, found Hakeem sitting around the back post, almost wide open, and his volley ended up going well over the bar. And 1 minute later, as typically happens with us when we don't bury a chance, 1 minute later, Bavarians add a third and then ultimately a fourth when we pushed everyone forward to close out the game. Game ends 4-0, and the scoreline of 4-0, and just kind of experiencing this game firsthand in person, it really stung, Nate. It was a tough one. It wasn't like the game where we lost 1-0 up here, where we were like, it feels like a loss, but it doesn't feel like a loss of the old days. But this one felt like a straight up loss.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that in a second, but I think you told me that Coach Oliver kept the team on the field for about 15 minutes afterwards.
Yep,
and
had some things to say.
Just had some classic Oliver things to say, I'm sure. And I think we understand. I think we know what kind of language was being used in that. And I just think that, like, up to now, I was very. I have admired how Coach Oliver has responded to losses on social media when he could, right? Or both when talking to Kyle in the tunnel, on video, but also on his own social, just to kind of talk about how he's building and things that he can change. I thought I'm equally impressed with his response to this 4-0 loss, right? Not only to absolutely dress the team down, but then to turn around on social media and say, look, this was also my fault, and to take some responsibility as well. Like, I hope that's what the team needs to hear, right? It's nice to hear him spread the responsibility for the loss around and show that he also has buy-in. It's not just I tell the team what to do and they execute. I really do like that, but I also do like, and admittedly, I also do like to see a little bit of that Oliver fire, which I don't think we've seen so far in moments of adversity. So hopefully that helps the team turn around, especially ahead of this weekend and a very winnable game.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for a coach to be in, right? You ultimately make the choices that the team has to collectively buy into and execute. But to me, being honest, it does go down to the players to perform. And you can only do so much as a coach. And I agree with you. I've really liked the unapologetically honest responses from the coaching staff this season, and basically saying, like, here's what we tried to do and we didn't do it. Or here's what we tried to do, we did it, and we were undone by some decision making, maybe by a ref or a ball bouncing the wrong way. But we did what we said we were going to do, and it wasn't our day, which it's so great to hear, because it's the look into the team markup that we don't typically get. So it's good, and I hope it continues, and I believe it will. So the Crows will be looking to bounce back at home tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this. Well, they welcome in Rochester FC to Edor Nelson Field once again. We've so far had great results against the fake Loons, so hopefully we can continue that streak.
Yeah, John, Rochester did just shock St. Croix this week, but that game saw Nathan Donovan get sent off on 2 yellow cards early. And that game was 0-0 at the time. And then the Loons just pounced on the opportunity to beat on a team that not only was down to 10 men, but they were totally without their talisman. Like, Nathan Donovan has been and always is huge for them. And without him, I think, plus down 10, like, the game, it was nice to see. I shouldn't say it was nice. It was nice to see St. Croix get a loss. Wish it wouldn't have come from Rochester, who are the only team below us at the table. Not anymore.
Yeah, that's our luck, right?
Yeah.
Game against Rochester on Saturday is also Pride Night. And just like last year, Minneapolis City has produced Pride t-shirts whose proceeds benefit our friends at Grey Ducks Soccer Club. And we are excited to welcome Ryan Adams to the show today. He's the club founder and managing director of Grey Ducks. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Ryan, we like to start off with all of our guests by asking them to talk a little bit about your soccer journey. Like, how did you get started in the game? Did you grow up playing, high school, college, anything like that? And how did you become a lover of the beautiful game?
Yeah, no, it's been a fun journey. I definitely played as a kid all the way through high school. Went to Rosemont High School, and then my senior year ended up kind of going towards tennis. That's where I was best at. So played some JV soccer as a means of playing, but certainly invested my time in tennis as that was my senior kind of sport. After high school, I did not play until about probably age 27 again. Mm-hmm. And I was on a kind of local public radio show with a queer soccer player, and he had this pickup group. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I had no idea you guys existed. So ironically, on a radio show, I learned about this queer soccer community that was growing locally, and decided to find my way back to the game. And always been a fan and as well as a player. But after 8-9 years away, I was like, well, I love playing goalie, so let's get back between the pipes.
Strap the gloves back on, right?
Yeah, so the last about 12 years, I've been playing locally in CSC Sports League and Minneapolis Parks and Rec, and then some reason at the ripe age of 38, got suckered into an MRSL team in the Division 2, so doing a little bit of that this summer as well.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about the Grey Ducks. What's the club's mission? How did the club get started? All the beginnings of your club.
Yeah, so Grey Ducks is really a spawned effort out of a nonprofit, that stemmed from the queer group that I mentioned earlier. So, that group started as pick up play, kind of some local, less organized methods of playing. And I had this vision of like, I want to have a soccer club that goes to tournaments and plays, in league play, and kind of has different formats and levels. And so in 2017, I really dove into that league aspect of vision. And so, we do offer pickup, and we offer league play, and then we do these fun queer tournaments around the world. So the Grey Ducks are started as like 4 teams that just played in leagues, and now we're up to about 55 teams.
Oh, wow.
And so there's, quite the range. And we started as kind of like a co-ed and men's, club. And, now we're basically split nearly even between 15 women's teams and about 15 men's teams, and the rest are co-ed. So the vision or the mission really is to serve our LGBTQ and then allied population. We have over 250 LGBTQ players, and then we have over 700 straight allies. And why that is because the blended community, that's the way Minnesota is. We live in such a great place that our queer community is really melted into the rest of the world. So our soccer club certainly reflects that. But also by having a mixed community, it allows people to play at the level they want to play at, play on the night they might want to play on, in the format that they may prefer. So soccer is just a very complex planning of sport and in the
totally
adult realm, whereas it's not like softball or kickball or something where you can really just hone in on certain levels, or your friend base can have a range of talent. You really have to align to some other factors. So that's kind of how the club's been built, is with these other miscellaneous things in mind.
John, that sounds a lot like how you and the guys got into
Stegman's. I was just going to say that.
and started growing. And I can only imagine. I mean, there's a few Stegman's teams across the leagues. But could you imagine managing 55 teams, man?
No. I might have to seriously think about my desire within the game if I was at your level, Ryan. That's a lot of work.
Ryan,
it is. It's the empathy, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal amount of growth. Like, how have you gone from the humble beginnings to, as your Twitter bio notes, 55 teams, that's the USA's largest LGBTQ allied soccer club. you've got 3 IGLFA World Championships. You've got a club that's a Gay Games bronze medalist. Like, how do you manage that level of growth? And do you have designs to keep growing, to keep being more competitive?
Yeah, it's a fun question. I should pay homage to where it's due. And, John, I think Stegman Old Boys is certainly an influencer of my beginnings. So
awesome.
I worked at a place where there was a family connection to Stegman the SOBs, I'll just say. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I didn't know it was Paul. So obviously Dan is his son. So I worked for Paul, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that Dan was your son. And so the more I kind of followed your guys' journey, I was like, okay, I can see how this can be molded and melted into like my own kind of vision. And
that's awesome.
So certainly there's a ton of influence that starts with the SOB. So I appreciate what you guys built, because it really did give me a vision. And I think that's where I wanted to focus more on the rec level, the kind of the everyday players. I know SOBs is, really that mix between like strong rec players with, the amateur potential players. And, especially Minneapolis City has kind of taken, I think, that vision to the next level in many ways. And so I kind of wanted to fill this gap I felt existed in the echelon just below that. So that's where I feel like, why we're so successful and why we're so large is because we're taking on this playing audience that doesn't necessarily want slide tackling or doesn't necessarily want to get hurt, but they want to play a smart, organized, challenging game that just reaches that threshold of physicality that soccer can have. And meanwhile, going back to work every day and not necessarily have to tap into their HSAs and stuff for surgeries.
I had to do that a few times myself.
So there's that aspect, certainly. And to kind of go back to your original question there with our growth and our size and sustainability. Much of me wonders, is 55 kind of that plateau? I would say from a bandwidth size side of things, certainly, I think that is. I think that there's a lot of ways to kind of maintain that size, which is really good for one club, and really help other leaders kind of grow within the community, nationally as well as regionally, to help kind of take on some of the onus of the time and responsibility that comes to the effort. So that's a little bit of, I think the future vision is just to continue to grow other leaders and providers in this space. And, it's not like a huge profit opportunity, because people time is a lot of time compared to, running a facility or, running a league. Running clubs and teams is just very, very interpersonal and high touch. But it's been fun. I mean, going to Paris and winning the bronze was really our first big tournament and challenge. And we brought in, players from all over the country that identify as LGBTQ. And we had a couple of players from Europe join us because this flock is always just beyond the Twin Cities and such. It's a lot of connections that we can make and build. And that really gave us the confidence to keep going and to pursue these other IGLFA events like the World Championships. And so our most recent one was in Australia, where we won the Division II international title. Nice. So super exciting there. And people, it's always about more than a game. It's this community that grows off the field, and the dinners and, the team mixers at these things is really what I think drives a lot of people coming back and then sharing about it and kind of creating this bigger ambiance and just this whole coalition of people and teams that are vested in this game of soccer and growing it. And it kind of becomes like a surreal type of outlet and feeling of community. And I think once people kind of get that experience or hear about it, then they all start joining it. And ever since, 2020, and a lot of these things happening, people just keep walking into the inbox and wanting to join.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a quick follow up for you. Nate's going to get into a little bit of like some of the everyday organization, but being a veteran of the I don't know what we'll call it, maybe the suck of having to be responsible for multiple teams. I know the pain. Also, I know the joy of it. Do you find that you have gotten a level of buy-in from folks that get their initial taste with your organization and then want to step up to become like co-leaders of things, or like manage a team of maybe like a sub-segment group that they're already connected to? Or do you still feel that you're like always having to be connected to everything?
There's no way that we'd be 55 teams with me being connected to everything.
Sure.
So I think that's definitely the why we have gotten so big, is that I can basically handle like 10, 15 teams like very strongly interpersonally. And then other ones, yes, have that kind of tiered level of self-accountability and self-reliability, team manager or team captains built in, because people, they do feel like they can own their experience better. I think that having helped create, a tool with our app that kind of gives people that easy communication, the ease of RSVPing, kind of takes all those busy admin aspects off. So it really comes down to me being on point to just be sure that teams are signed up, people are paid for, those that want shirts or uniforms get those. And so that's really the high level role that I can play now. And then the day-to-day, like finding subs I can help with, but overall, people have established relationships even within the club of who they want to bring in based on, do they need a defender, or do they need a striker this week, or what it may be. And as people kind of drop out for life events, backfilling those spots has been much easier. I would say I think the struggle that we all face in the Twin Cities and in adult soccer is co-ed has a shortage of women. All teams have a shortage of goalkeepers. So those are probably the two big hurdles that we face.
Yeah. It's very satisfying when you put a lot of your life's effort into an organization like yours, or like we did with Stegman's or even Minneapolis City, when there's that one person or that group of people who they get the small taste of it, and then they're immediately bought in and they're looking for any way they can help. And it's so gratifying to someone like yourself who started it, to see like, the proof is there. Like, you organized this, you gave people a platform to self-select any number of options that make it right for them, and then they buy in and are willing to contribute off the field as well.
Exactly. And I think it's the off the field part that's so neat to me. When you see these people that were strangers, 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and they're having dinner parties, they're having their own like little team awards, and like that's to me what I feel like it's like, wow, like,
for sure,
I made that possible. Or people are invited to weddings, or heck, new couples form. I mean, those are all really cool things.
You mentioned briefly that not only was your team successful, or one of your teams was successful at the gay games, and then you're talking, you've also brought in some athletes and helped win like IG LFA World Championships. Have you found that is all an outgrowth of just basing this on an accessible game of rec league soccer for everybody, and then that gives people the opportunity to kind of come in, see what it's like, and be like, you know what, I actually do want to compete at a higher level. I do have that ability. Do you have that opportunity? Or did you have to go out and like recruit players to play at that level and compete at like an international level?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. So what we do is we start locally on who's interested in such and such tournament, what levels do they have, and I mean, queer soccer at competitive level is super competitive. And by that I mean like people that probably could have or did play college soccer at a D3 or higher level. But the tournaments do offer the variance levels, and we've, I guess, through my friend group and kind of the local playing group and those that actually, I think there's a correlation between willing to travel and talent, at least early on in the club. And so we were able to bring kind of a talented group and then supplement by recruiting those that have been published in Outsports magazine or online as being out soccer players. And so we've gone to many of these with a competitive team in mind. But then even like our tournament in Australia, we were like, okay, well, that's pretty far away. It's gonna be hard to get a lot of strong talent to that to
that's
D1.
Not St. Cloud.
Yeah. So we kind of brought in that mixed blend of talent, and we pursued Division II instead. And we still found ourselves to be pretty successful because of just being dedicated to our craft and just good leadership of how do you bring people up and bring them along, even if they might be at a lower level.
Sure. That's wonderful. So you organize everything from pickup games, which is, I'm sure, dealing with local rec departments, right? And organizing through that. You've got league teams, and there's, of course, like fees and all that involved, all the way up to travel teams. I guess once you get to like the travel level or even the league level, what organizations did those teams play under?
Yeah, so luckily we just draw permits, with municipalities for pickup play, and that is, we can talk later about that with how Minneapolis City has supported us in that realm. And then league play, we do several. We have 10 teams that play in the Minnesota Women's Soccer League, the MWSL, which is part of the Minnesota State Association and USASA. And then MRSL Division II is also in that same umbrella. And then most of our teams play recreationally under CSC Sports, which is a 7v7 local league. Mm-hmm. And then also Minneapolis Parks and Rec offers spring, summer, and fall leagues that are 6v6 in format and 11v11. So kind of we like the output of summer play because that gives us the 11v11. Yeah. But then being able to play 365 is huge. And so having those 7v7 formats year round just gives people that ability just to play one night a week whenever they want all year long.
And some of those, like even MRSL Division II, like some of those teams can be deceptively competitive.
Yeah, yes they can.
Like surprise, these are guys that just graduated from D1 soccer programs. They just decided they wanted to start a team.
Yeah, as a 43-year-old, I hate looking across the field and seeing less gray hairs than is on our side.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more over 30 and over 35 leagues and opportunities out there. So I think we're it seems like that we hit this thing after COVID where people are really wanting to just continue lifetime sport more so, and especially in soccer.
Yeah.
And so we've seen this kind of resurgence in numbers. And my hope is that as that number gets sustained and we age, those other leagues will kind of come forward.
Word. Ryan, it's been well covered how hard it is for athletes to be out as gay in any locker room across most, if not all, sports. You mentioned that you do a little recruitment, of players that, have done interviews and whatnot in magazines. But do you find that a lot of athletes that join the organization come from that kind of environment, like a D3 or above environment? And how rewarding is it to be able to maybe provide a space where they can be themselves in a sport that they love?
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to play as their most authentic self, especially at high levels of play. I think that's proven by obviously not having any out, current athletes in the MLS,
yep.
And especially in Europe. So that fact is understated and obviously very proven. But I think what we experience in our club is we encounter those that are not out yet, and we respect their status, and we don't necessarily publish their name and anything like that if they're associated with us, and if they play in a tournament, we go to great lengths to really protect them in their interests. So there's been those cases, but overall, those that do come out and aren't playing in those amateur and higher levels, they kind of get this renewed opportunity to play as their most authentic self, because a lot of them maybe weren't out in college, and they don't have the same type of locker room environment that typically tends to keep you closeted.
Yeah.
So we've had some really fun comments from people over the years about they started to not have so much fun in college and playing in UPSL. They're like, oh, I lost the fun, and then they got to play just queer centric soccer amongst people that were like them or of like mind, and like I had fun again. Like this is what I was looking for. I made another chosen family member or a brother, or just got to use vocab that is part of their everyday that they couldn't necessarily use amongst others because they just didn't understand what they were saying or the intentionality of statement. And So I think for a lot of people, it is neat to be able to play within, I guess, interculture. I mean, I'm sure that's what people that participate in the Hmong League or any other cultural league might feel like. It's just this unique opportunity to be around those like yourself and just play with a smile.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing to offer, I think. Let's get into the partnership between Grey Ducks and Minneapolis City. Last year, Minneapolis City donated proceeds of our Pride Kit to your organization, and I'm not sure the dollar amount off the top of my head, and I don't think you need to publicize it. But let's talk about how far even a modest gift like last year's goes for your organization.
Yeah, I think any club trying to make an impact in the community, especially anything from pickup play onward, is lacking, funds, because there are the permit fees. You do want to have insurance and things like that. So to do it right and to do it well does take funds, and people don't necessarily want to pay to do pickup soccer, or they're just trying to just test things out. So to get support from a group like Minneapolis City really allowed us to just do pickup play in a more formal and organized means with, equipment that was proportionally sized for the field environment. So last year we were able to do over 30 pickup events, most of which were actually geared towards our LGBTQ audience, as well as we were able to create a team trans, because there was an ask was, hey, we have this trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming group of people. We want to just get to know each other and play together and to have our own little inter-club identity. So
sure,
we were able to pay a local artist to create a logo for them, because that was what they wanted, part of their brand identity. And we got 2 new 7v7 kind of pop-up nets, so for mobile play, and we procured permit space for them too. And so the goal, I'll say long term, is they're going to be their own type of team within the club. And that way they have their own whole unique challenge in sport of being accepted for their, either their perceived identity or, soccer is still a highly binary run sport. So trying to get them to be in a space that they can play safely as their most authentic identity and gender is just a huge core component that we're focused on internally, in hopes that we can bring them externally into leagues like we're already in. So it's a developing effort on our side. It has over 25 athletes part of that group, but certainly wouldn't have been possible without Minneapolis City's support last year, because that's afforded us all of those pickup opportunities that we would have otherwise been kind of struggling to make happen.
Pardon if I don't have the terminology right, but like it feels like with so many different communities and sub-communities within your Grey Ducks organization, there's a lot of room for that kind of for those kind of teams based on different alignments and lifestyles to kind of form organically. So that's a really cool opportunity that you just don't find. You just can't find that anywhere else, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the Grey Ducks so unique, is that we became a safe space for that community they've been playing throughout our club since the beginning. But now there's even a wider community, like, hey, people brought friends in saying, you want to play soccer, but these are your barriers. You don't identify as female or male, and you are afraid of what a ref might say or opponents might say. We've been able to navigate a lot of that and give this community confidence. So it's really special to me to be entrusted to help bring that together, and I don't take the responsibility lightly at all. And so I'd say there's a lot of work to be had in that space. But I think overall we've seen great response from the leagues, Minneapolis Parks and Rec and CSC, in honoring gender identities and ensuring that people can play even outside the binary. So it's been a very delicate effort, but we've been very aggressive in ensuring that people can join soccer regardless of how they identify.
It's wonderful. Do you think that I mean, we've talked a little bit about how like 55 teams is pretty much a cap on growth size wise, but do you feel that, growing the game in that way as far as acceptance and for being able to provide safe spaces is what is either becoming or definitely is kind of the long-term goal of Grey Ducks in Minneapolis, St. Paul?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the more we can ensure representation, especially in the leagues that we play in, but just in any pitch that we hit, I think it's certainly our opportunity. I think we're living it every day, but certainly there's a lot of people in the community that aren't being served just yet because either they're still a little bit weary of the space or they don't know we exist. But I think that we're getting there. The sooner we can get over some of the binary restrictions, I think the better off we'll be. But that's kind of I think the next 10-year battle here is to see how can we expand league's horizons to just be more inclusive.
Well, fans can support Ryan and the Grey Ducks soccer right now on mplscitysc.com and tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening to it, at the Minneapolis City versus Rochester game by grabbing a Pride t-shirt. 20% of the of that price goes to support Grey Ducks and their efforts, all the efforts we just talked about, and hopefully many more to increase playing opportunities for the community.
Yeah, and like you said, John, you can buy those online or you can buy them in person. We hope to see you all at the game. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Pride, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I know it's super busy for you. You've probably got a lot going on in both your personal life and with the Grey Ducks this weekend. You're probably very busy, but I hope we can see you tomorrow at the game at least.
Yeah, no, thank you again for your opportunity to share your platform and our message, and we're looking forward to a Minneapolis SC win.
Yeah,
all right.
I think we all are. All right, thanks a lot, Ryan.
All right, thanks all. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. A week after the 21s put in the shift to bring the club another trophy, that brings their tally to 4 in 5 seasons in the UPSL. They took on 1826 Academy in the conference tournament, a team that the Crows were able to dispose of 5-3 on the road earlier in the season, but they were ever dangerous making a game of it, especially after seeing the 21s come out to a 4-0 halftime lead and then ultimately drop a few we'll call it a few three consolation goals and really turn the heat up on the game that they had felt they had formally frozen out. But that's soccer, Nate. So how did this one unfold?
Yeah, I was in the booth for this one, John, happily, and I was pretty optimistic. But this time around, it was the visitors that took it to the home side. I'll say that 1826 this time around, John, was, well, to be fair, I didn't see the first 1826 game of the season because it was away. But this team was sharp, man. They were sharp on the ball. They shored up their leaky defense from the first meeting. They continued to absorb pressure on the counter effectively, and they made the most of their chances. And the Crows could really never recover from that deficit, but we did grab some goals back. I'll tell you, John, just by virtue of probably where we play and the fact that this was the first playoff game for 1826 in their first year in the league, this felt like a home game for 1826. Like you and I asked on the pod, hey man, come out. You guys got to come out, and there's nothing else going on for Minneapolis City this weekend. Support the Futures, and instead it was Instead, it was 1826 who had support, like lots of fans. They were very loud, cheering for almost every touch, and it paid off. Like early on, we were in trouble. They countered. They got behind the defenders, and that attacker was brought down for a PK. We lucked out that went off the post in the 9th minute, but I think that was a signal of things to come, because we did score first. That was in response to a Reese Tidwell goal, I believe. But after that, we were proven vulnerable on the counter, especially John down the wings. 1826, they pressured every chance they could. And, if we had a wing back that was a little far forward, they were able to take advantage of that. And again, this is a theme that we've run into across a couple of Minneapolis City teams. It was the second and the third runners that they used to overrun the back line. And when all three of those guys are fast as hell, it was definitely tough for the center backs to adjust. I think the other thing I'd add on this game is that the tempo was really stop-start. The ref didn't let anything go, so it was very hard for Minneapolis City to get anything going, because when they did, they were fouled and they had to restart either slowly, or if they did a quick restart, 1826 was ready. So they definitely used some tactical fouls to keep this game to keep the team off balance. And even when they were, oh yeah, you're right, those are the 19s. Even when they were behind, the Crows started working hard, but they just weren't lucky at the end. There's a header that was off the crossbar at 68 that would have gotten us back in the game. Another chance in front of an open net at 70. Another header over the bar 83. And by then it was just too late. There just had been too many squandered chances, and we could not get back into this game to take the lead. So season over for the U21s, but all in all, I'd say successful.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I mean, I know that making the national playoffs is always a goal, but in my honest opinion of this team within the club, looking at a broader perspective, winning the home bragging rights by taking the regular season title actually, I feel, does more for the club and for the team. It helps in recruitment. It helps, bringing in, talented players that want to be on a perennial winner. As this conference has shown, it's gotten better. And with the Pro Rel setup being added, and it looks like we'll be welcoming a well-run Bateau team into the Premier Division, if everything continues to stay the way it is, which I think it will in the Division 1. Yep. And potentially another strong side like Joy Athletic, who has an MPSL squad, and you never know who's going to show up for that. It's only going to get that much stronger. So it will be that much more important for our U21 side to be that much sharper, to stay on as the leader and on top of the state of Minnesota as far as the UPSL is concerned. And I definitely want to say this: hats off to new to the club coach Josh Roy and his staff of this team. I think each time out, I was very impressed with how they set up, how they addressed and overcame areas of weakness that presented themselves throughout the season, and how they were able to have, I think, a team culture that was very together and supportive, especially with roster fluidity, with, some guys moving up, and just kind of a little bit of an unknown and a larger roster, because, we know Minnesota summer soccer, people tend to have things going on, but very, very close-knit locker room that I could see. And let's also not lose sight of the fact that for the first time, Nate, in the history of the club, this team led the division in goals for. We have never done that before at any level in Minneapolis City history, and they scored 40 goals over 11 matches.
That's a lot of dang goals, John.
Yeah, lots.
And I think that, there are the couple things I would add around the success of why the U21 team was successful this year, obviously beyond just winning the regular season, is that it fulfilled the mission of Minneapolis City to develop local talent, or talent that plays locally in their college career. When you think about the players that went out there, this is a very MIAC-centric team, right? And whether it's you're playing at Augsburg or you're playing at McAllister or St. Mary's or wherever all these guys are, this, the few D1 and D2 guys aside, these are players that are going to go right into their local MIAC rosters and be ready for that season come August after a little bit of a break. And I'm really excited to see what they do. So you and I had started the Crows in College segment last fall, and I'm just more excited for it this year as we can
for sure
see what the Augsburg guys are doing, see what those guys from Bethel or from St. Mary's are doing, and all. And it's just going to be really fun to follow players that we're now a little bit more invested in after another year of success on the UPSL field.
Well, in good club news, the U19s continued what we predicted would be a late season we'll call it coming together.
Yeah.
And they stayed red hot after the narrow defeat to Shakopee 1-0 on a late goal. The team finished the second half of the season 5-0, 5 straight wins, putting them into a chance to capture a place in the division's first playoff ever. And one thing to note is that due to having the 21s in the Prem division, the Premier division, the 19s are unable to qualify for Pro Rel, but they can hunt for a trophy. And how sweet would it be to not get promoted, but take the trophy from a promotion team? That would just be the icing on the cake. But
that was my question about how that works is like, do you have to win the 4-team playoff in order to get promoted? Or is it just promotion based on
division, I think.
Top 2? It's not bottom. I thought it was just 1. That's awesome.
I think it might be 2, but don't hold me to that. The rules in the UPSL are always very hard to find and very written in invisible ink. So don't hold me to that. But at least the division winner will go up, and maybe the runner up. But as far as their last game was concerned, very end-to-end dominant, very strong showing against St. Paul United, who at the time of that match this week was sitting above the Crows in the table. So the brief bits I was able to see this match, it was pretty hard to get the stream to work. Coach Heinen and the boys set up really well, and then were super sharp on the ball. Their off the ball movement, I think, was fantastic. They were constantly providing different areas of attack that caused fits for St. Paul throughout the whole entire match. The scoreline ended 6-3 for the good guys with a similar theme. The goals came from a lot of different places. And that was one of the things that we had talked about as the team was kind of hitting the right gear, was like the goals aren't coming from like one single person. I will say the inclusion of Landon Christensen over the last 3 games, I think he scored 4 or 5 goals in 2 games.
2 games, yeah.
What's that?
I think it was like 6 in 3 games.
6 in 3 games. I mean, that's a great free agent to pick up as you're trying to hit your stride. But the goals we talked about, like we're missing, maybe one attacker that could unlock this. But then we started seeing goals coming from all sorts of different places. In this match, the 6 came from Bryce Dolam, Thomas Deasing, Julian Browers-Nelson, and Jabari Kabisu all had 1, and then Ethan Lemoyne had 2 to round out the 6. So really great stuff, man. I'm super happy with our prediction coming correct. But we saw the proof was in the pudding, and it was coming even after the first game loss to Joy Athletic. We saw like there's something here. It's just going to be a matter of time until it clicks. And I hope that, they can continue the run in the playoffs.
Yeah, so let's talk about the playoffs. As you mentioned, Bateau FC is does finish the season top of the table with 22 points. They had an overall record of 7 wins, 1 draw against us, and 2 losses. So one thing to note is it's not like there are teams running away with this Midwest West Division 1 with undefeated or anything like that. Like there's some good parity, there's some good competition, which I like. Minneapolis City is currently sitting in second seed of the playoffs, 6 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. Just that one difference means that we have 20 points. There's 1 game yet to be played that could affect the top 4, because St. Paul United is in 4th with 19 points, tied with Joy Athletic in 3rd. They have a game in hand, and their game is, I believe, tomorrow, Saturday morning, against Valora FC2. So if Joy wins that game, they're the 2nd seed, and we are the 3rd seed. So that playoff game will be still played against Joy no matter what. It's just a matter of where. And if they lose, then it'll be against Joy at the Nelly. If they win, it'll probably be out in St. Louis Park.
It'll be an interesting one too for what Joy Athletic does from a personnel perspective, because we saw them bring a very heavy NPSL roster to play us in the beginning of the season, but their senior side in the NPSL does play at 7 p.m. tomorrow as well. So what's it going to look like? Is it going to be a situation where results are more important than the player, and trying to have 2 players play 2 games, or are you going to see maybe a more true reserve side come out? So who knows? We only one person on earth knows the answer to this question, and he's probably listening. Well, that'll do it for this week's show. Thank you to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Our friends at footballstadiumprints.com are always expanding their soccer-focused t-shirt design, prints, and more. Don't forget to use the code CROWS10, that's CROWS10, for 10% off everything you purchase. And remember, all U.S. orders ship right from the United States, so no pesky international shipping charges. As a reminder, MPLS City SC, the Crows, are a 501c3, so you can feel good about your membership doubling as a charitable donation to the club that does good. Memberships for the 2024 season, I believe, are no longer available, but get on board next year, get that swag, and get a chance to have a voice in the club. Head on over to mplscitysc.com and check out pricing today and maybe start to throw something in the savings account for next year. Remember, you can always hit us up on Twitter X at The People's Pitch. We are on Instagram as well at People's Pitch Podcast. And you can even email us if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover on the show, mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always connect with the club on Twitter X at MPLSCitySC. And that'll do it for this week. I'm John. That was Ryan Adams from the Grey Ducks. And of course, the Nate Morales. As the futures are wrapping up, there's still plenty of USL soccer to be had and Minnesota Super Cup soccer and some great causes to support over the next few weeks. So head online, head on over to the Nelly and grab yourself a seat. And you got hooked.